Okay, we are at the Sea of Galilee, and this is actually not a sea. It's a lake. Seas are by definition made up of salt water, and this is actually a large freshwater lake. It's actually 175 feet below sea level, and in some of the videos I'm going to show later, you'll see that it is ringed by hills, and there's some valleys going through those hills, and so it explains why in the Gospels so many times it'd be on the lake in a boat, and a storm would come up very quickly. What happens is if the winds change inland any, the wind will kind of rush like a wind tunnel through those valleys and hit the sea, and then you'll have these big gusts. But you can see right now that the water is very, very calm. This is pretty typical until the storms come up. They said on the tour that a couple weeks ago it was very stormy here on the lake. In New Testament times, it was actually called the Lake of Gennesaret, and but the term the Sea of Galilee came from the early Christians. They began to call it the Sea of Galilee to emphasize the prophecy from Isaiah that talked about how the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, alongside the sea, across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who lived in the dark have seen a great light, and a light has come upon those who lived in the region and in the shadow of death. That's from Isaiah chapter 9, and it's quoted in Matthew chapter 4. So later today, we're going to be visiting the city of Cana, where Jesus performed his first miracle. That's the turning of water into wine, and also Capernaum, where a lot of Jesus' ministry was centered. But here again is the Galilee, also called the Lake of Gennesaret.
Hello guys again. Hi everyone. My name is Afi. I'm the guide of the Green Pass. Just want to orient you better. Just straight forward ahead of you. This is the area where we're going to visit. Where you guys are looking at. This is the area of Capernaum, from whom where the miracles.
Okay, we are at the Mount of Beatitudes, and this is a traditional site where Jesus preached his Sermon on the Mount. And you'll see, actually, I was not aware of this, but the Mount of Beatitudes is, you can see the Sea of Galilee. It's right there. You can see it through, there's a field of some kind there. I'm not sure what they're growing there. But up the hill, this is a traditional site, and there is a Franciscan, let me walk so you can see it. There is a Franciscan church on the site where Jesus traditionally preached his sermon. And it's up there. Of course, that was obviously not there in Jesus' day. This just would have been a grassy hill. And they have tested the acoustics, and if you were up on that site speaking, then you would be able to hear really well. You just imagine people on the slopes gathered listening to Jesus as Jesus was there on the top of the hill. And so this is the a Franciscan church on the top of the traditional site where Jesus preached his Sermon on the Mount. A lot of the sites we're going to be seeing, the holy sites, are very similar in that there are churches built on these sites, Jesus' birth and so on. Okay, we are approaching the Church of Peter's Primacy. It's called that because this is a traditional site where Jesus gathered his disciples on the shore of the lake. This is after the resurrection, and has breakfast with them, and then asked Peter the 3 times, "Do you love me more than these? If so, feed my sheep." And this is now a church of the Sisters of Mercy. And I'm going to flip the camera around here and show you the church as we approach it.
What we're doing?
Feed my sheep.
I don't know that.
Okay, we're in the traditional site of where Jesus had breakfast with his disciples, and this is the shoreline. And behind us is the church. This is the church of the primacy of Peter. By the way, over there is a valley. You may not be able to see it. It's called the Valley of the Sea and the Doves, and it's the main road from the Sea of Galilee to Nazareth. So when Jesus traveled from Nazareth to the Sea of Galilee, he would have gone by that road. Okay, this is a church in Capernaum. Capernaum sort of functioned as Jesus's base of operations. It's where he lived like his second home once he left home from Nazareth. It's also the site of where Peter's mother-in-law was, and this is the site of Peter and mother-in-law's house. This is where Jesus was teaching one day, and they lowered the paralytic down through the roof so that he could be healed. And then many of the healing events happen at the synagogue in Capernaum. And just over here, you'll see through those trees, those are the ruins of that synagogue of Capernaum.
This is the inside of the chapel. We're looking down at the excavation of Peter's mother-in-law's house. You can just imagine them lowering the paralytic down into this home.
This is the interior of the synagogue of Capernaum. This is also the synagogue where Jesus performed one of his first miracles, the healing of the demoniac. It's also the synagogue that the centurion, the Roman centurion, helped build, the same centurion whose servant Jesus healed. This is an excavation of the original village of Capernaum. You can see the walls. These would have been mostly homes. And you can see how close Peter's mother's house would have been, because that's her church over the site, to the synagogue, which is right here. Here we're on the very north shore of the Sea of Galilee. This is a Capernaum shore, and the Jordan River flows into the sea just kind of over here to the east, to my left. And there was actually a toll booth at the ford going across the Jordan River here on the north side of the Sea of Galilee, and there was a tax collector at that ford, and his name was Matthew. That was where Matthew had his tax booth, and of course where Jesus encountered him and called him to be his disciple. Now, looking across the sea, we're looking toward the south, and there was another ford where the Sea of Galilee flows into the Jordan River there on the south end. And there was another tax collector at that ford as well, and his name was Zacchaeus. He was there in Jericho. We're actually going to see Jericho later on, I think early next week. But here we're about to leave Capernaum and head toward River Jordan. Okay, we are at the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River just south of where it exits from the Sea of Galilee. One interesting thing is that in biblical times, the Jordan River here was about a mile wide. Obviously, it is not that now. It's very narrow. I think I heard that is because it is so heavily used for irrigation that it's just shrunk over the years. But over here to the left are some areas where people, groups are doing baptisms, and I'm going to try and get a video of that here in just a minute. All right, that's the end of the day. We're back at the hotel, and I'm going to go eat dinner. But as you can tell, it's been a very, very full day, and looking forward to tomorrow. So I'll post a video about the same time tomorrow, and hope you enjoyed this one. Everyone have a good night.